Well, welcome back, everybody, to this unique experience. We're trying for the first time a recorded podcast via Teams, Zoom, whatever these things are. Probably not sponsored by Microsoft, so let's just say video chat.
There you go.
There we go. We're set up here to do this for the first time. Steve's in Erie. I'm in Washington, as always. You know, Steve is our director of marketing, and I'm just here as the big goofball. Trying to keep things moving and organizing. But anyway, we are excited to get back for another episode of this podcast. We have a special guest today, Shona Eakin, our CEO, which I think is a nice touch. She wanted to come on board and kind of just have a special message for our staff after the interesting week that you all had here a few weeks ago up in Erie. Steve, I know you can speak more to this when we get into it later, but we will be talking about the weather. We'll be talking about the holidays and all that fun stuff. We're trying to get one more additional podcast in after the fact. We had really hoped to do it at our holiday party, but unfortunately that was canceled. I should say postponed and moved on. So we'll be doing another Teams again, here I go. Microsoft, if you're listening, we'd love a sponsor. But since we don't have anything, another video recorded podcast here. So anyway, all that being said, we're just going to keep, as they say, calling the audibles and moving on and trying to make things happen. Steve, what is this for us? Like 6, 7, 8? How many have we done so far here in the last, since August? Our first one was in August, right after the whatchamacallit, our fitness thing. And I see you flipping through your screen. You don't have to. If you don't know the answer, it's okay. It's not a big deal.
I'm near positive this is episode 6, but I'm not. Cool. Actually, no. You know what? This is episode 7. I'm my mistake.
Episode 7. Mm-hmm. Just like the comeback of Star Wars. We're at episode 7. And I'll tell you what, it's been an interesting ride. By no stretch after 7 episodes are well, I think you are. You're at least an editing expert, but I am no podcast expert by any stretch of the imagination. But
I'd argue
it's been a lot of fun. What's that?
I said I'd argue that.
Oh, stop it. It's been a lot of fun that we've had here doing these. We've been able to interview some great folks, and Shona Eakin back again as our special guest today. But we are excited for what's ahead. Like I said, we're going to do one more here, kind of an end of the year wrap up. I think it's really cool. We'll have the opportunity to do some things. And we kind of called the audible. We were going to have a big question and answer session for this one, but we called the audible. We'll postpone that until next year's podcast release. But right now we're going to spend some time focusing on the weather and some of the things that happened here, the significance of what occurred in Erie and all that fun stuff. Steve, as we kind of wind down the end of the year here, and we're going to talk about the weather and other things, what do you think in terms of our podcast? What's really neat? I think you told me a story I'd love for you to share about a young man that you met in our offices, and kind of interesting to find some what do you call it, fans in the midst of the craziness that we have here. So tell that story, and I kind of just want to share how cool it has been to be able to have an opportunity to speak to everything that's going on here.
Yeah, it's really something else that we just kind of got this podcast going up off the ground just months ago, and we're in episode 7. And somebody approached me in the lobby and said, "There's somebody at the front desk who'd like to speak with you." And that's not uncommon by any means. But as I made my way to the front desk, the staff member that pulled me aside said they're a fan of the podcast, and I kind of took me aback a little bit. And I said, "What do you mean, a fan of the podcast?" So I walked up to the front, and there's a young man, I believe his name was Tony, and he had said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm a big fan of the podcast. I watch every episode. I love what you and Nick are doing. I'm a big fan, putting the information out there. I watch every single episode you guys post the minute you post it, and was kind of curious about maybe even becoming involved at some point, any way they could help." And, it was kind of interesting. It's not the first time that somebody's approached me to say that they appreciate what we're doing here, which is, again, kind of takes me aback, because it's something that we've had as kind of a little bit of a pipe dream for a while, is getting this podcast up off the ground. And we weren't sure exactly how well it would go over. There's a lot of time that's spent filming, a lot of time that's spent editing. And, when it all boils down, you have about 15, 20 minutes of a podcast, and there's been hours put behind it. You do hope that people get something out of it. But to hear people kind of sing our praises, and that is not to toot our own horn, but it's to know that we're connecting with people, and to know that it does make a difference, it does matter, is really something. We've had consumers approach us. We've had Mike Campbell as a guest host in your absence. We've had consumers and staff approach us alike to say, I'd like to be a part of this. So you'll be seeing a lot more of that in the future too.
Yeah,
but it's really kind of like a humbling experience to be a part of this, and work hard to get this up off the ground, and to see it kind of cover so much ground in such a short time. It's really really gets me motivated and excited for the future of the podcast and what else we can do for the community at large.
That's it, and that's I threw Steve a curveball here on this one because he kind of told me this story offhand. But we number one wanted to really take a minute to say, hey, Tony, thank you. Appreciate your opportunity, your time spent watching two. Well, Steve's a good guy. I won't include him in this, but one big goofball here, trying to pretend like we know what we're doing here. So, but again, what Steve is saying is kind of it was a neat moment to hear the story, but also we're thankful that people are watching, because it isn't about us. We don't really. I'll be the first one to tell you this is the last place I want to be is filming a podcast. That's for sure. But with what we do and the organization that we're a part of and all the things that we are trying to do to help people, this is huge, to just continue to spread the word, to educate, and to share with people that it's not about us, because it is about every single consumer that we have, whether they are actively involved with us or trying to get involved with us, or don't even know that they're about to become involved with us in some form or another. Our goal here is to take care of that disability community as a whole in the 27 counties we operate on the entire western half of the state. And I know that that impacts more than just those that live here. It can impact anybody across the country or the world who has someone or knows someone who is living with a disability, and how difficult and or struggling it could be in some form or another, so little or so big, depending on everything that goes on. It's something that is very aware. Steve and I see it every day because it's where we work. And if you don't see it every day, you don't think about these things. And we'll talk about this more as we go into what happened in the winter weather up there, and folks like our CEO, Shona, and others who ended up being stranded because of how the weather came and what happened there. So we're fortunate for those few fans that we have. Thank you for spending your time with us in these podcasts. And I hope that we can continue to, obviously, as Steve said, we've got a lot of folks who want to join us in 2025, and we're excited to get that rolling. So we thank you for those that have been a part of this and everything else on those lines. We're excited to head into our next segment here as we bring in our CEO, Shona Eakin. She is pumped to have the opportunity to talk today. She's the one that approached us about doing so. We're excited and happy that she did. So hang tight, and we'll be right back with Shona Eakin. Well, we are back and happy to welcome our guest co-host, our CEO, Ms. Shona Eakin, here to the podcast today. Shona, we have had some interesting weather experiences here these last couple of weeks, and we got to talking, and you had mentioned that you wanted to spend some time with us talking about the weather, but you also had a special message for our caregivers. So first things first, for those that are lucky enough and fortunate enough not to be in Erie over the last 2 weeks, what have you guys experienced and what's gone on?
Well, I think it made the national news, but we've received anywhere between 4 and 6 feet of snow Thanksgiving weekend and a couple days after that. And when you have a situation like that occur, it's difficult for anyone, let alone getting persons with disabilities where they need to go and getting people to them to support daily activities like getting up, getting dressed, cooking meals. Those kinds of things are all things that many people take for granted. But when you're stranded in a snowstorm, you can't do that. So it was definitely an experience. It's probably the third worst snowstorm I've experienced here in Erie in the last 24 years of my being here.
That says a lot. Then after you said 20 something years here, that's a lot. Wow.
I was trapped for 9 days in my own house,
Goodness.
so I understand, what a lot of our consumers went through, and I really just wanted to take this time to thank all of our direct care workers because they worked tirelessly to get to people. And I also, we had situations where people were stuck a block and a half away from people they were trying to serve.
Goodness.
And, it was to the point where streets were blocked because cars were stuck, etc.
Yeah.
I also want to take time, though, to thank the office staff because they truly went on all hands on deck to make this happen. We met twice a day as a leadership team, trying to prioritize those folks who had greatest needs. And, the storm lasted a while because it hit us and then it came back around and hit us again. And by the end of a 7-day period, we're starting to think, we're making phone calls to the people we serve saying things like, do you need food? Do you need your prescriptions? Those kinds of things, because no one could get out if they used a mobility device. And even if you didn't, it was difficult to get out unless you had, a 4-wheel drive or something like that. So the staff really kicked it into high gear and did a lot to meet basic needs. And, and in addition, though, I also want to thank Erie County Emergency Management because we did hear that Governor Shapiro had called in the National Guard on Saturday to help support Erie residents. And so I immediately called PEMA, which is the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, and they put us in touch with Erie County Emergency Management, and we had people that were working with us to get folks to consumers' homes, especially those who had the greatest needs. And I look forward to continuing to develop that relationship with emergency management systems across our service area, because you never know what kind of disaster there will be or what kind of emergency you may have. So, we're excited to continue that relationship. I'm glad today to say that it's 48 degrees outside and
certainly,
that the snow is melting, but in between it can be very difficult. So I just really appreciate every effort that everyone has given to help us survive. And, we were getting support from our Washington office during the storm as well, being able to take calls and triage those calls and get them out to people that were trying to meet the needs. So it was truly an all hands on deck effort from our direct care workers to our office staff to the emergency management system here in Erie County. So thank you, everybody.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks to everybody. I echo Shona's words. And I will say this, I'm one of the few that's down in our Erie office and didn't get to experience this firsthand, but I did get a picture the next morning after the initial snowfall because I asked, I said, hey, how are you guys holding up? And the picture that I was sent was a overturned plow and salt truck and said, this should be all you need to know about what's going on up here. And I said, my goodness, okay, you guys are really, it was a big one for sure. So definitely a big thank you to everybody. It takes a big effort. I know we had multitudes of people out 24 hours a day. We had people overnight from the office staff picking up driving shifts to make sure caregivers had an opportunity to get in their houses. It's been a really awesome experience to see how the teamwork came together in such a crazy random bit of weather, but that's good. And I think what it also helped with too is we can see what can happen at any random case, and we know what to expect moving forward in the winter and how we can really be better prepared to take care of those folks who need it the most. And I think that's really what really came out of that. Steve, what do you think? I know you were part of the crew in Erie dealing with this one. How'd everything go up on that way?
You know, it was tough for me just because of the fact that I wanted to get out there and help. I had studded snow tires put on my car for a reason, but the snowfall was just so much so quickly that couldn't get off my street. The plows hadn't come to the street in days, and so the best I could do was make phone calls, touch base with consumers, which was very rewarding though to be able to talk with consumers who said, you know, I've already heard from a couple of your people today, you know, but still to be able to check in with them, make sure that they were doing well, like Shona said earlier, address any kind of food insecurity, make sure that they were staying warm. A lot of people had concerns about their furnace vents and things like that being blocked by the amount of snow. And so just talking it over with everybody, letting them know that we were here for them and that we are going to do whatever we could to address these concerns. And like you had said earlier, Nick, having all hands on deck, multitude of people out there driving around who could get through this tough snow was really appreciated by everyone, the consumers and then office staff like myself who were stranded alike. It was definitely a tough week there, but I'm glad we made it through, and I'm glad, you know, like Shona said, we appreciate everybody who came together, and that includes the consumers who are patient and understanding and realize that, you know, there's nothing really that you can do in those situations but try. And I think that we demonstrated, you know, from top to bottom that we were trying our best as much as we possibly could. And luckily, I think everybody's needs were met. So that was great.
That's it. And that's one thing I think will be very helpful and educational. I know we put this podcast together to bring some attention to us, and we've been trying to do that throughout the year in the many podcasts that we've been able to put out. But one of the things I think that a lot of folks never think about is this kind of situation. When a significant snowfall happens, you know, Shona had mentioned it pretty clearly, 9 days stuck at home. And that's just a matter of circumstance in the sense that such a significant snowfall, it can do this. And that's the community that we serve, are those folks. So as Steve mentioned, we appreciate the patience of all those who helped us as we went through this process, but also it's really educational to show you the importance of why companies like ours exist, so that we can really do what needs to be done for those folks all the time. Kind of like the post office, rain, snow, sleet, and hail, whatever, we're ready to go. And we don't have a choice. We couldn't take the off day. We couldn't take the snow day. We had to get out there and do what we need to do wherever we were. And I think, like Steve said, we accomplished a pretty good deal of it. We're happy to be able to talk about this, to share these struggles, if you will, but also to share these success stories and how cool it is that when you get a group of people together who support each other and want to take care of each other, these things can happen and we can do good. So Team VFI and everybody involved, way to go. Thank you to everybody. And this was really cool. Thanks, Shona, for making that time and for us here today to speak about that incident, and to say thank you to our staff. Heading into the holiday season here, we're kind of at the end of the rope here, I guess, if you will, for 2024. Shona, any big plans for the holidays?
Well, you know, everybody says they want a white Christmas, but I really don't want a white Christmas this year because we have enough white out there.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to be with family and friends, and I hope everyone enjoys their holiday, whoever you spend it with.
Sure.
You know, I'm a big believer in you make your family, you make your friends, you make your community. And, you know, we at Voices appreciate the fact that everyone has made us a part of their community. And, you know, we're going to be open all this week and then Monday of next week. And then we're closed on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and closed again on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. But in between, come out, check us out. You know, we'll be here for you. And I just wish everybody a happy and healthy holiday, Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year as we head into 25.
Awesome. Thanks, Shona. Steve and we got one more to do, and we'll share those holiday things coming up. But Shona, we wanted to check in with you and make sure, as we hit the end of the year, Shona, is there anything on your heart that you'd love to share with our viewers about the end of the year and what goes on with VFI and companies, organizations like ours, nonprofits, and how, you know, we hope to try to make one more splash here to say hi and let people know that we're here. Anything on your heart about that kind of stuff as we get to the end of the year here?
I guess I would say that what makes Voices for Independence unique is that we try to meet needs when no one else has, or when people are falling through cracks. The things we did to help people get through the storm are unique to VFI. I mean, we had a VFI Vuber, we called it. It was
Yeah.
VFI's version of Uber, and people were literally on the roads 24 hours a day for 3 days straight. And those things take time and money. So if anyone could see it in their heart, or any way they can, to donate to our organization so that we can have the dollars to do those kinds of unexpected but necessary things,
Sure.
we would greatly appreciate it, because we are a nonprofit. We are very program funded, but when unique needs come up, we scramble to
Yeah.
try to solve those problems. And so any help you could give would be great.
That's it. Thank you, Shona, for that. You're right. Unique needs are kind of interesting. I think Erie, you folks are always used to snow, but not 6 feet in a couple of days. That's a different kind of uniqueness there for sure. So, Shona, thank you. We know that you are busy. Thank you for your time to join us here. We appreciate your message, and I know all those that call VFI home as a place to work are really appreciative of you and your leadership and that message of thank you. We all went through some crazy times over the last couple of weeks, and we just it's good to know that it's recognized, and we thank you for that. We thank you for your time today. So, thank you, Shona.
Thank you
And
both.
we'll be back in touch one more time here as we close the year out. Steve and I are going to get together. We had intended and planned to have a really cool last Voices for Independence podcast live from our holiday party this year, but unfortunately we had to postpone that until next year due to that significant snowfall. So you will see a little more unique version of our last podcast with Steve and I coming up here shortly. So thank you all for joining us. We appreciate those who take the time to listen, and we hope we continue to educate and help. If you all need anything, you know where to find us. We thank you so much. Y'all have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Take care.